That's going to be a phone line where you can text in any responses to some of the questions, or if you just want to share a happy Halloween message, that's awesome too. If you're not joining us live, if you're watching this in the future, then you can always send us questions and we'll try our best to give you as good of a response as we can. But that's going to be through our that email is going to be live@LPV. Well, like I said, happy Halloween because it is a spectacular day. We have a very spectacular event for you guys today. We're going to be doing a craft together. This is going to get to a lot of what does that mean? I'm going to give you guys a second or two to think about what does the deep sea mean. And remember, you could always text into that number, 562-286-1838. What is the deep sea? You can start also, if you want a message about what kind of animals might be in the deep sea. Do you know what might the deep sea be like? You know, we're going to talk a little bit about things like the temperature in the deep sea, what it looks like in the deep sea. It looks like the deep sea might even be going on behind me. I'm going to step off so you guys can see a better view of that. I encourage you to also think about, oh, I'm hearing someone say it looks dark. It really looks dark, right? So the deep sea, that's among the deepest parts of our ocean, right? And so if we think about the very top of the ocean, you usually can see just fine if it's during the daytime at least, right? Because there's the sunlight beaming directly down on it. Now, it makes sense that the further down we go in the ocean, the harder it's going to be to see. And in fact, in that video that you're seeing on the screen, the only reason that you see light down there is because of the humans that are down there exploring it, or better said, the machines that are down there exploring it. So the light that you see being produced there, that is from most likely what is an ROV, meaning remote operated vehicle. And those are those kinds of submarines that humans use to explore those oceans. And so they have lights that are built onto them so they can shine things out. Now, if we think about what kind of animals might be in the deep sea, does anyone know any deep sea animals? I'll give you guys a few seconds to think about that, okay? All right. Ooh, I'm getting some great responses. I'm hearing big squid. So some of you might have heard of that giant, the giant squid, right? That one is definitely a deep sea friend. We also heard, let's see, what else did we get? What were some of those responses? An anglerfish. Ooh, that's a good one. That's going to have to do a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Good. So you're hearing some examples. I'm going to hop back on camera here. You're hearing some excellent examples of some deep sea friends. And I forgot to do one of the most important things at the start of our day. I forgot to introduce myself and my friend who's behind the scenes right here. So my name is Sergio. But more importantly, my friend behind the scenes who's helping us do all of this behind the screen magic is Soraya. So Soraya, I'm going to ask if you have any photos of some of those deep sea creatures that I can hop off screen so you guys can take some good looks at some of our deep sea friends, some of the types of animals you would find in the deep ocean. And then I want you guys at home to kind of brainstorm what are some similarities, if there are any similarities between these animals that you can see. Let's see. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Very fun. I already see some similarities between those first two. Let's see what else we have. Ooh. What are some things some of us might be noticing? Oh, that's a fun one. One thing that I've noticed, especially with that one that we just saw, is those soft bodies, right? That one looked squishy. Some of them, though, like shrimp that we saw earlier. Ooh, like that one. That's the soft body one I was thinking. But then we also have those harder bodies, right? Those crustaceans, like that shrimp. Nice. And that color of that shrimp is actually going to be really important. So we can talk about two things, talking about color, and then, ooh, that's a great image there, that one right there of that bright blue plume. Does anyone know what we call that? What do we call, I'm going to hop back on screen here, but does anyone at home know what we call it when animals are able to produce that kind of bright, sorry, on this side, this bright, colorful plume? Sometimes they do it on their own bodies. There's a key word for it. Let's see, I'm going to give you guys a chance to tell me if you know it, and then I'll tell you. Ooh, somebody said bioluminescence. Very good. Yes, so we call that bioluminescence. Breaking up that word, we have bio, which just means life, and luminescence, meaning light or brightness. So life that produces light, bioluminescence. That's a fun word to practice. But that bioluminescence, a lot of the creatures in the deep sea, they produce bioluminescence on their own. They have special chemicals that are inside of them that are able to create those lights. And it's really useful for a lot of different reasons. And one of the reasons is because it's so dark down there, right? We just talked about that. One of the other reasons is, so like this shrimp, for example, right there. I'll hop off screen so you can see him. But that shrimp right there, he is creating this big kind of smoke cloud. Think of it like a ninja throwing down a smoke bomb. Because if there was a predator that wanted, like maybe that anglerfish we were talking about, that wanted to eat it, what it would do is it would shoot out that bioluminescent cloud, and it would kind of it would really disorient and distract the predator. Because if you're living your whole life in a dark ocean, and then all of a sudden, boom, bright colors everywhere, covering you up, that's pretty distracting, right? Now there's also animals like our anglers, right, that you might know a little bit more about those. But those anglerfish, they are the ones that have those kind of dangling lights. You might have seen them in a popular movie. But those dangling lights are used to attract their prey. So they kind of go towards that light thinking, oh, maybe this is a tiny little shrimp, or maybe this is a tiny little fish with a little bit of bioluminescence. And then they're in for a very scary surprise when an anglerfish kind of pops from there. Oh, this is a great image of that. Hop off. You can see that angler, that little light dangling up top. Nice. And you know what? That anglerfish is actually a perfect transition into the craft that I mentioned we were going to do today. So I prepared a anglerfish craft, a little make your own anglerfish, and I wanted to keep this as simple as possible because I know that sometimes at home we're not always all stocked up on craft material. So really all you're going to need today is a paper, a pencil, or something to write with, and scissors, and if you want to, some coloring material, so like a crayon, a marker, anything that you want to color with, paint even, and some tape would be helpful. Oh, we have a question. Okay, let's get, what's the question? Ooh, that's a great question. So somebody asked if they have those fluorescent lights or that bioluminescence, if they have the ability to do that, is that considered an adaptation? That's absolutely considered an adaptation. And right, it's not always, even though the adaptation may be the same, so bioluminescence is the adaptation, it doesn't mean that the adaptation is being used for the same reason. So that's a really interesting thing to think about, right? So some of these animals, they all share this adaptation, which if you don't know, an adaptation is just a skill or something that an animal develops over a long amount of time that helps them survive in their environment. So humans, we have opposable thumbs, meaning we have thumbs that can grab things. That's one of our adaptations that we developed. But down in the deep, deep ocean, thumbs may not be that important, but what is important is light. Another thing that's really important is camouflage. So actually, if we go to that picture of that shrimp, that red shrimp that was producing the bioluminescent plume, we can actually talk real quick about another important adaptation. You might have seen, I'll step off screen, you might have seen in some of the other pictures how red is a very common color in the deep sea. That's because the colors that you see when you go deep, deep down in the ocean, they actually change. Down in the deep, deep ocean, you actually can't really see the color red. It's kind of complicated to explain, but all you need to know is that really the main colors that show up are like blues, greens, things that are closer to the shade of blue. Anything that's closer to red, like oranges, even some yellows, but especially reds, they show basically as black. And so if you think about that, of course, we're seeing this shrimp as red because we're shining a light on him. But if there was no light there, what advantage or what good can come out of being a shrimp whose color is all red in the deep sea? What advantage does that adaptation give them? Well, if you're saying, well, if red shows up like black in the deep sea, that means that they will be basically invisible. You're totally right. So red animals in the deep sea, even though when we shine a light on them, they're red, the other animals down in the deep sea with them, they actually can't really see them that well. They blend in. Here's a great photo of some of those examples. And, some animals, they don't go fully, or they don't have that red coloring. Instead, they're just completely see-through, like our friends over in the corner there. Yeah, so animals have a lot of different kinds of adaptations to survive in the deep sea. Those soft bodies is another one I was talking about. So if you think about that squid earlier that we just saw in there in the corner, those soft bodies of theirs, that helps them survive in those deep, deep pressure. So the further down you go, the more weight that you have on top of you, because water can be pretty heavy, especially when there's a lot of it in the deep ocean. Okay, so if I'm going to have us go over to my document camera, and I have some things kind of prepared here for us. Let me zoom out a little bit if I can. Turn it this way. But like I said, for our craft, I just have a regular old piece of paper that I grabbed, and actually, just to make it go a little bit quicker, I already drew out some of the shapes. But based on these shapes here, anyone have a guess? Well, I guess I already told you guys earlier. But in case you just joined us, anyone have a guess based on these shapes, what we are going to put together today? Someone said an anglerfish. Very good. I don't know if you were here when I said it earlier or if you're just that clever, but congratulations. Yes, this is an anglerfish. The little angler might give it away, the little nub with the light on top. And so these are the shapes you want to get going. So if you have a paper and you want to do this craft along with us, or if you want to do this later, just make sure you have a paper, something to draw with. So I drew these earlier with a pencil. And I'm actually going to start kind of coloring along. I'll try to do things, just some of the main colors. I'm not going to color everything just because we may not have time for everything. And also because I don't want you guys to think you have to color it exactly like me. So one of the great things, so I'm going to color that little light bulb just a very bright yellow so that it looks like a light's turning on. Let's see, what might these pieces be? What do you think this triangle here might be? Well, for me, that triangle right there, that's going to be that kind of back fin. So think of that like tail fin, if you will. I'm going to kind of do the outline there. I might give it some dark stripes just so it looks a little bit different. And then I'm just going to quickly color it in. And now mine, you may be a better artist than I am at home. Or you may be a worse artist than me, and that's totally okay. Was never that great at arts and crafts, but it's not about the quality of the craft, it's about how much fun you have doing it. And joining you guys here today on a spooky Halloween, I am very full of joy. And I hope you guys are too. If you guys have any, if you guys want to share while I kind of work on this, or as you work on this along with me, you guys can, in the chat, you can share maybe what your costumes are going to be. Do you have any costumes planned for Halloween? Maybe your favorite candy. Ooh, favorite candy. I'll start us off. For me, my favorite candy is probably those peanut M&Ms. Ooh, questions are coming in. Yes, please. From the 4th graders at Lake Matthews. All right, Lake Matthew 4th graders, what do you got for us? Oh my gosh, what's the most popular fish in the deep sea? That's a very hard question to answer. I think it might change. The answer might change depending on who you ask. But in my opinion, and this may not be a fact, but it is my opinion, I think the anglerfish, honestly, is the most popular. I think working here at the aquarium, I've talked about the deep sea a lot, and every single time I talk about the deep sea, the anglerfish is the #1 thing that comes up. Even to people who have never really thought about the deep sea too much, they can always say, "Ooh, is that where the anglerfish lives?" So I think that one's probably the most popular. Do you have other questions? Ooh, what's the deepest part of the ocean? That's a great question. So the Mariana Trench is kind of the Mariana Trench is the name of one of the deepest, or the deepest region of the ocean. That's about, I think Soraya was telling me that's about 36,000? Yeah, 36,000 feet deep, which is kind of hard to imagine, but it's very, very deep. The ocean itself, though, is broken up into a lot of different zones, and the deepest zone where the Mariana Trench is the hedopelagic zone. It's kind of a big word. You don't have to know it, but that is another way to answer your question. And it's pretty cool. That's where, again, where the Mariana Trench is. It's 36,000 deep, and not a lot of people have been down there. Ooh, somebody said, are a lot of deep sea animals endangered? That's a wonderful question. You know, and on just to draw us back a little bit to the craft here, I'm just going to draw an eye, do some scales, and then I'll start cutting some stuff out and show you how we can tape them together. But okay, back to that wonderful question. Are a lot of deep sea animals endangered? You know, I actually am not really sure how to answer that question, but because it's kind of, because even scientists themselves don't really know. You know, because the deep sea is really hard to explore because there's so much pressure down there. It's a part of the ocean that's almost the least explored. So we don't really know if those animals are endangered. A lot of the animals that we do know of the deep sea, we've actually only seen a couple times when scientists have gone down there to explore. So it's not like here on land, and here are our gills for our fish, but it's not like here on land where we see animals all the time. The deep sea is a really hard place to explore because of some of those reasons we talked about earlier. All the pressure of that water. That's why people can't just go swimming down there. We need those big machines, those robots. Actually, Soraya, can you put up maybe a picture of an ROV, what those robots look like? ROV stands for Remote Operated Vehicle. And they're those kind of, there you go. It's this remote controlled. Usually it's remote controlled. Sometimes, depending on how deep people are going, people can be inside of it. But most of the time, it's just remote controlled. And you can see those robot arms that they use. They have those flashlights built into them. And so that's what they use to study them. So yeah, so it's hard to say whether things are endangered, but if I had to take a scientific guess, and you can take your own scientific guess, my guess is that no, they're probably not endangered because I wouldn't imagine that there's a lot of predators, like humans aren't down there, right? A lot of the animals that are endangered on land today are because of humans either hunting them or the way we change the environment, but humans haven't gotten down to the deep sea much, so my guess is that they're probably okay, unless something really crazy is going on down there. Ooh, that's a great question. Is the Mariana Trench deeper than Mount Everest is tall? I am like 95% sure that the answer to that is yes. I have seen graphics where like you can fit Mount Everest, and the Empire State Building on top of each other and still have it be plenty of room in the Mariana Trench. So that'll give you a very great example of just how deep that Mariana Trench is. Okay, so going to the craft real quick while we get some more questions ready. Here are everything is colored in, and now all you have to do is cut stuff out. So I'm gonna grab my scissors, cut this little angler out, and now I'm just using a regular piece of paper, but you can use whatever you have at home. If you have like a regular piece of paper from a notebook, that works. Printer paper. One of the really common things people might use for this kind of craft is a paper plate, which is kind of nice because it's already in a circle. I'm just gonna... Ooh, wonderful question. Someone asked what kind of sea plants grow in the deep. Now let's think about this. When we think about plants, what are some of the things that plants need in order to grow? I know there's one big one. It's how they get their food. And it's that sunlight. Good. I'm hearing that some of us might have gotten that answer. Good. So sunlight. So there are, I believe, some plants that are able to grow in the deep sea, but there aren't very many. And it also depends on how deep you go. So the deep sea, the deepest part of the seas, there is probably not many, if any, plants down there, because think about it, there's no sunlight down there, right? Before getting too deep, like kind of in the middle zone, before you get down to the deepest parts, there are some plants that are able to grow in the very, very dim lights that is available there. I'm not sure of their names. Maybe I can look some up while we work on this craft, and if I do, or if we get some of those, I can tell you guys. But yeah, but think about that. There's not a lot of light there, so you don't really get too many opportunities for plants to grow. My guess is that there'd be some sort of some variation or type of kelp, because that's kind of like the main plant in the ocean. Right? Plants are very different under the sea than they are on land because they're very different conditions. Okay. And you can see this is where I'm just adding these kinds of my fins. So the oval shaped fin that you might have, that one is the kind of side fin that I was going for. That triangle fin there, that is the back tail fin there. Now when we think of the fins on animals, they actually each kind of do a different job. One of the best examples is on things like sharks, because sharks have so many fins. But each of their fins each have a different little job. For most fish, that back tail fin is actually the fin. So like this one right there, if you're looking at our anglerfish, that one right there on the back. Yeah, rotate it like this. Turn it that way. There we go. Okay, that back triangular tail fin, that's usually what's giving them all their power to move and swim. Whereas the ones on the side, we call those pectoral fins. Those ones are typically the ones that help them change direction. So they kind of use them like a plane uses their wings. Ooh, we got a comparison picture. I think we're going to go up. Oh, nice. Okay, so here's a great example of what a real anglerfish would look like compared to my anglerfish. I think mine's a lot cuter. So I don't know if I get any points for that, but you know, one thing I'm seeing that I'm missing for sure, and it's going to be the last touch on my anglerfish before we go here, is I need some sharp teeth, because every good anglerfish needs its sharp teeth. And now this is going to be a little wonky, because I'm just going to cut them out directly, but you just got to do a couple triangles, because, you know, they do have some pretty sharp teeth, and it kind of fits for the Halloween spooky vibes that we're doing, right, today? So I'm going to go for some sharp Halloween teeth. Ooh, so somebody asked, how can anglers survive the pressure? Now, this is going to be our last question that we take before we go. But there's a couple different ways there. It goes back to that conversation we had about adaptations, right? So one of the ways is their bodies. We kind of addressed it earlier, is that they have very soft bodies. So a lot of the animals that are in the deep sea are invertebrates. Now, the anglerfish is not. It is a vertebrate, meaning that it has bones. But surrounding those bones, is all of that soft, kind of tissuey, squishy body. So you think about it like if you were holding slime, right, in your hand and you squeezed it really hard. Well, the slime, because it's so squishy, it's able to just kind of mold around your fingers, around the hand that's crushing it, and it stays. And then maybe when you release it, it kind of goes back to form a little bit, but it doesn't hurt it much, right? Or think of another great example is SpongeBob. SpongeBob on TV. I know he's just a cartoon, but he could teach us a lot. Whenever SpongeBob usually gets hurt in an episode or tries to get hurt, right? He's too spongy, he's too squishy. And so that's actually a pretty good example of how these soft-bodied animals in the deep sea survive that deep pressure. Is that um, those soft body parts actually help them resist the pressure a little bit because they're squishy instead of hard, so they're not getting crushed like a peanut or something. Another way that is important is they actually have adaptations inside, like their swim bladder, which is a special part in their body that helps them kind of control the pressure difference. So the pressure that's pushing down inside of them, or pushing from outside versus the pressure that's pushing from inside, they kind of have like a little balloon inside of them that they're able to inflate, and that actually helps push back some of the pressure that's pushing on them, and that helps them get into a place of balance. And in life on Earth, balance is the most useful thing that you can have. Okay, well, on that note, you have seen here that I've taped up my anglerfish. I just taped some of the fins onto where they go, so remember that oval fish, or sorry, that oval fin will be right on that side next to those gills. That's its little pectoral fin. Cut out some teeth, gave it its little triangle fin on the back there, and then we have, of course, its signature angler, that little light bulb on top that's going to attract all of its friends. I'll turn down the light there so that it looks, you can see him disappear. Ooh. All right, guys. But thank you again. Hop back on screen here just so we can say a quick goodbye. But thank you guys for joining us here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. I hope that you guys have a wonderful Halloween. Please stay safe and get plenty of candy. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.